College over the weekend. Outfielder put together a pretty good season last year until a back injury forced him to shut it down for good in the middle of August. He had to went back surgery, rehabbed in the offseason. There's some speculation that he would not be ready for opening day, but he's not even sure why it's a question.
Yeah, I feel fine. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't be ready for opening day. I kind of saw that come out before I came here. Like I was a question mark for opening day, which I'm not really sure where that came from. But yeah, I mean, unless something crazy happens here, I don't see why I wouldn't be ready.
Brewers scheduled to hold their first full team workout tomorrow. Can open up Cactus League action on Saturday. Turning to the NFL, the entire league is getting ready to head to Indianapolis next week. That's where more than 300 college players will gather to show their wares as part of the NFL Combine. Among those, going to be 3 Badgers: Hunter Wohler, Jack Nelson, and Joe Huber.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
You're grateful for all the ways technology can connect us. Unfortunately, there are online scammers who want to take advantage. Malicious viruses, phishing scams, and identity theft are more prevalent than ever. That's why Rural Mutual includes cybersecurity protection as an option on every policy.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, Wisconsin jumped 5 spots to number 11 in the latest AP Top 25 poll released this morning. It's tied for its highest spot of the season. Badgers have won 4 in a row, including a big win at Purdue on Saturday. Leaves them 10-4 in Big Ten play, good enough for 4th place and 2 games back of conference leader Michigan. Badgers going to host Illinois tomorrow night. Illini have beaten them 9 straight times. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil.
Wisconsin's going to fall just shy of 100 points at Purdue. This team is for real. 5 seconds left. Another jumper for Cox. In and out, and that's it. Strong statement by the Wisconsin Badgers. They come into West Lafayette and knock off Purdue.
Obviously playing good basketball. We're a really good team, and I think we're getting better. And that's the exciting part, that they know there's a lot more left to come. And, it starts with our next game.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
The final call from Wisconsin-Purdue on Saturday. Comment of Greg Gard from the postgame presser. That's what you just heard in the intro. Gets the show started. Wisconsin beating Purdue on Saturday. Was the final score 94-84, almost 100 to 94-84. Oh, that was a big time college basketball game. That was a real college basketball game. And look, I love a Tuesday night game on Peacock. I love a Tuesday or Wednesday night game on Fox Sports 1. I like it all. Okay. But there is something a little bit better. There's something next level about those weekend matinee games on CBS, right? With the theme music that we all know and love. And I think it's also once football is done and you start to get big time college basketball games on Saturday or Sunday afternoon, that's when they start to feel big. And I was just watching highlights again before the show started. And I know it's a little thing, but if you listen to this show every day or you listen to sports talk radio, this is probably a thing that'll resonate with you. The score bug on CBS looks legit. It looks big time. It looks official. Ian Eagle and Bill Raftery, that feels official. That feels big time. Just a big time basketball game. Just in time, too, as we lost football with the Super Bowl being a week ago. So that's where I want to begin. I think we'll probably spend most of our time tonight on Wisconsin basketball. If you have thoughts about anything else that took place over the weekend, and if you watch Daytona, I'll take your call on it. I don't know that I'll be able to add much. If you have a thought on the NBA All-Star festivities, if you have a thought, I'll take your call. I don't know that I'll have much to add. My rule of thumb it has always been with events like the NBA All-Star game, I would rather just talk about something else because I don't think anyone liked it. I don't think anyone thought it was good. I would rather talk about the things that we think are good. I would rather talk about the things that we find more interesting. It's not interesting to me to have the NBA All-Star game sucks. Let's try to fix it. That's not my job. I don't work for the NBA. That's on them to figure out. I'd rather just talk about something else. So my main interest tonight is Wisconsin-Purdue. That's where we will begin, at least. And if you want to bring up anything else, you're more than welcome to. 608-321-1670. We'll get into your calls and texts after our first break, and you can comment on the live stream as well. YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. The live stream is up and running, and I normally check the comments because people will start yelling about how something's not working. All right, I assume you can all hear and see the show okay, because I don't see any complaints. We'll get to the Monday mailbag in the final segment of the show, by the way, 5:50. So submit any questions that you have, sports-related or otherwise. GrantBills21@gmail.com. I said on Friday, and Nick Osen, our guest, who is excellent, wholeheartedly agreed. You got to get one of these, right? You don't have to win at Purdue, but if you lose on Saturday, you got to win Tuesday at home versus Illinois, or vice versa, right? This was seen last week as a pair of games, two teams that have outstanding records in conference play or better than 500 records in conference play. Purdue's above them in the standings. Illinois slightly below, but Illinois has also beat them now 9 straight times. I said on Friday, and Nick Osen agreed, which means his opinion means more than mine. You got to get one of these. You got to get either Purdue or Illinois. Wisconsin has had a great season. They've stacked wins. They've been a blast to watch. A lot of talent, a lot of energy, a lot of entertainment. But they had yet to beat an elite Big Ten opponent or even a very good Big Ten opponent. Like, I don't think UCLA is elite. I don't think Maryland is elite, but they're good to very good. And Wisconsin's wins so far have all been against teams that are 500 or below in conference play. Their 4 losses so far have been Michigan, Illinois, UCLA, and Maryland, all above 500 in conference play or exceptional in conference play in the case of Purdue. Illinois has been dealing with some injuries and some missteps of late, but that's a real team as well. I don't like the expression good loss. It's not my thing. I would just prefer to say, let's put it this way. If a football team, let's use football as an example when we're talking about college football playoff resumes, right? Let's say Wisconsin was 10-2, fantasy world, I know. Let's say Wisconsin was 10-2, but their 2 losses were to Ohio State and Oregon on the road, right? I wouldn't say of that team, their 2 losses are good losses. I wouldn't say that because I don't think there's such thing as a good loss. I would say those aren't bad losses, right? We're not going to hold those against Wisconsin or Team X, whatever, use whatever example you want. I don't like the term good loss. I just prefer to say they don't have a bad loss. The Badgers, up until this point in the season, in my opinion, don't have a bad loss. But since that win over Arizona, which feels like a long time ago because it was, they don't have a great win either, right? So they don't have a stinker, but they had yet to get a signature win. They had yet to hang a pelt on the wall. That on Saturday was their great win, right? And also, the thing that I first started thinking about after the game, and I brought this up in a Twitter space as well, maybe some of you were in there. We only did it for a couple of minutes on Saturday. I had nothing going on. I'm like, whatever, we'll do a Twitter space, old time's sake. It's probably one of their best regular season wins. If you just think of the past 5 years post-COVID, other wins that are up there, and I'm talking regular season wins, right? They beat Indiana to clinch a share of the Big Ten title in 2020. Right. By the way, I went and I looked up the score and I watched some of the highlights from that game. That game finished 60-56. That game was 25-28 at halftime. Feels a little different, right? Badgers are playing some different basketball now a couple years later. But if we're thinking about the biggest, the most important regular season wins that the Wisconsin Badgers have had under Greg Gard post-pandemic, let's say, it's Indiana at Assembly Hall in 2020 to clinch the title or a share of the conference title. They gave away a share by losing to Nebraska later that week, if I remember correctly. Johnny Davis at Purdue in 2022, which is the last time they won at Mackey. They've won, I think, 6 times at Mackey Arena in the last 55, 60 years or something. I can't remember the exact window, but I saw the stat earlier today, made a mental note, right? So it's Indiana in 2020, Purdue in 2022, and you could maybe say Marquette last year. Marquette was number 3 in the country at the time. They knocked him off, but that's not a conference win. That's not a Big Ten win. So really, I think Saturday's win belongs in a group with 2 other games, and it was the game at Assembly Hall to clinch a share of the conference title in 20, and Johnny Davis just showing up and kind of single-handedly beating the Boilermakers at Mackey in 2022. That's it. That's the group. Right? That's where this win belongs. One of the biggest wins of the last 5 years. So we all recognize the importance, right? On the road. Now they put themselves right there in the pursuit of a Big Ten regular season title. They need Michigan to lose once or twice. Michigan State, the most difficult part of their schedule, is coming up. Wisconsin also visits the Breslin Center, so they'll have an opportunity to make up ground on that team. And Purdue's got to turn around. They're amidst a slide. They've lost a couple in a row now. So this is an uber important win, significant win, at least in the recent history of the program. We all recognize that. And I still think this win is being underrated. Because we were all jacked up on Saturday, did a Twitter space. I was reading, I was consuming all the content right into yesterday. And I've listened to a lot of sports talk today from around the state of Wisconsin between Ebo and Bill. And I check out on the other stations, the competitors. I see what they're saying as well. I think this win's being underrated. Not just from a historical perspective, how important it is, but in a vacuum. Saturday's win, to pull a Ryan Russillo, if you dig into some of the numbers, if you dig deep into the offensive numbers, they scored almost 60 points in the second half alone. They shot 20 of 22 from 2, 40% from 3. So it's not like, well, they hit all their 2s, but they struggled from 3. No, they were outstanding from both short and long range. They only had 3 turnovers, and they scored 1.45, so a little bit less than a point and a half per possession. Just an unbelievably effective and efficient offensive game. They basically came out at halftime and said, look, we'll maybe miss 1 or 2 shots the rest of the game, but that's it. So keep pace with us, which is almost impossible. Like if you're scoring a point and a half per possession, it's almost impossible to keep pace. You almost have to score every single time that you have the ball. Purdue, going into this game, was 28th in defensive rating in the KenPom. They dropped to 40th. I saw someone tweet that out. I said, there's no way that's true. I went and checked it. Yeah, they did. They're down at 40th now in defensive rating in the KenPom. That I believe they're right behind overall. Wisconsin's 9th in the KenPom. Purdue is 10th. So still very good overall, but they went up against a stout, very, very respectable, top 30 defensive team in the KenPom in the country. Flushed them down another 12 spots in the ratings just off one performance. Wisconsin ate them up. And Matt Painter was asked after the game, because a lot of Matt Painter's postgame press conference was, we didn't get stops, we didn't force turnovers, we didn't stay in front of the ball. They couldn't defend the ball. They were getting blown by, whether it was Tanjay or Blackwell or whoever. Klesmit was taking guys off the dribble, right off the rip. And Matt Painter was asked about that. He said, why did your defense struggle after the game? Here's Matt Painter.
Our concentration just wasn't very good, but I think great teams make you look that way. I think they got a special team. I told our guys there, they gave you a lesson in maturity. I thought they were mentally and physically tougher. It's something I write on the board every game. You got to be mentally and physically tougher than your opponent, and they were tougher than us in those 2 areas.
First team since 2010 to shoot 60% or better from the field and commit 3 or fewer turnovers on the road. They hit almost every shot they took. And unlike some Badgers performances this year, they didn't turn the ball over, because we've seen in losses where they hit 15, 16 threes, but they also turn the ball over a lot and they give away points on the other end. That was as buttoned up and as clean and as effective and as lethal of a performance as you'll see in college basketball. It's hard to have a better win and a more impressive than Wisconsin had on Saturday. I think we're underrating how impressive that game was. And again, I think we all recognize the importance of that win relative to some of their other big conference wins. I'm just going to say in this era, to make it clean, let's say post-pandemic, so Davison into Davis and like this era, this is one of 3, I think, regular season conference wins. One of 3. The Indiana game in 20 to clinch a share of the conference title, and then Johnny Davis at Mackey in 2022, also to beat Purdue. Right? That's the company, that's the bucket that this game goes in. It's a very small group of games, but also the details of how they won this game. It's like, holy balls, that might just be one of the better games I've seen the Badgers play, right? In my lifetime. They did something offensively that hasn't been done in 15 years. Shoot 60% or better from the field, turn the ball over 3 or fewer times on the road, and score almost 60 points in the second half to kind of cruise to a victory. I know that Purdue had hit a shot here and there, but Wisconsin just kept scoring. They just kept putting the ball in the bucket. And if you're a Purdue fan, and I think Matt Painter's comment kind of illustrates this, he's like, yeah, sometimes a really good team, we just didn't have an answer for
Make you
him.
look that way.
Yeah, what did he say here?
I think great teams make you look that way.
They couldn't defend around the rim. They couldn't stop the ball. Wisconsin would work for open 3-point shots. And making this win even more impressive was the ejection of Kamari McGee, which had me pulling my hair out. It's like, as a sports fan, I sit down, we're now a week removed from football. We've moved into college basketball mode as a country. And of course, the NBA is playing. And, But really the next big thing is March Madness. These conference schedules are starting to come down to the wire. The conference races are crystallizing, right? We're starting to talk about seeding, and we have these huge matinee games. Wisconsin at Purdue, what a matchup. And we're going to taint it by throwing out Kamari McGee for something that I don't know. I thought a flagrant one would have been a stretch. They just straight out threw him out of the game, which was gross and crummy. And I felt kind of just disrespectful to a great college basketball game, but that's neither here nor there. Kamari McGee was ejected with 6:20 left in the first half. Wisconsin was down 5 at the time. About a minute later at the 5:31 mark, Purdue was up 9, 35-26. Could have folded at that point. Could have folded. And Badgers fans would have said, well, they threw McGee out and it completely, had the Badgers betwixt and between, and they never bounced back. And this is the type of whistle that Purdue gets at Mackey, and we're on to Illinois. See if you can get the second half of this kind of elite competition sandwich, Purdue Saturday, Illinois Tuesday. Instead of folding, Wisconsin goes on a 10-1 or a 10-2 run and goes into half down 1 point after trailing just minutes before by 9. And we'll pick at Greg Gard's presser, I think, throughout the course of the show. I'll mix in some sound bites and some comments. But I think this was my favorite part of his press conference when he was asked about the ejection of Kamari McGee and how his team bounced back.
Just how they rallied together. I think actually McGee getting, the ejection actually threw more gas on our fire and really united us. And I probably talked less in these huddles today than I have all year, just because they were so engaged and so instrumental and instructive with what they wanted to do and what they felt was working and both ends of the floor.
That tells me it's a big boy team. Once Kamari McGee was ejected, I actually had to talk less because it was so clear that they knew about the task at hand. They knew what was necessary. Greg Gard talked about how fired up and excited they were to play in this game. Kamari McGee gets thrown out and you think, oh, time for the coach to go into overdrive. He's got to do damage control. And Greg Gard stepped back and looked at his team. He's like, you guys know, I don't need to say anything. That tells me this is a big boy team and gets my hopes even higher for the remainder of the conference slate, the Big Ten tournament, and beyond. So we can continue to talk about that. I have more sound from Saturday. I would like to take your calls if you have any thoughts on the weekend about Wisconsin beating Purdue 94-84. I think it's one of their 2 or 3 most important wins of the last 5 years, and straight up one of the most impressive college basketball games, especially from an offensive perspective, that a team can simply play. Unbelievable win. I want to continue to talk about it, and I'll take your calls next. 608-321-1670.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Just how they rallied together. I think actually McGee getting, the ejection actually threw more gas on our fire and really united us. And I probably talked less in these huddles today than I have all years because they were so engaged and so instrumental and instructive with what they wanted to do and what they felt was working and both ends of the floor.
That's Greg Gard. I think that's my favorite comment from his post-game press conference when asked about McGee's ejection, because you would think, a player gets thrown out, a coach has got to do damage control, got to rally his guys, got to get it. And I love the idea of Greg Gard getting ready to dig in, to reach his guys, and then to look around the huddle and see, okay, they understand. They're dialed in. They're focused. They're ready to go. Right? The idea that Greg Gard actually had to coach less because his team was that dialed and that aware of the task at hand and that excited to tackle the task at hand, right? I love that. That has me feeling even better about this team's chances down the stretch because now they're in the thick of an opportunity, a race at the Big Ten regular season title, but also what comes next in the conference tournament and in March Madness as well, which is something that we can talk about as the show progresses. But I want to get to your calls. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, Clemhead Mike.
Clemhead. Good evening. How you been?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm very excited that Wisconsin won on Saturday. That was one of my favorite sporting events in a while, I think.
What a weekend. I unfortunately missed the second half of the Badgers game because we had company, dang it. But
you're a good host then. You prioritized.
Yeah. Badgers over the mighty Purdue. Half the cars is Daytona 500 ended up in the Crusher. And there was a boxing match and a hockey game broke out. Did you watch the first part of that USA hockey game? The ref dropped the puck
and they won.
And the players dropped their gloves. It was like watching Slapshot, the final scene where they're on that championship game. It was awesome. 3 fights in the first 9 seconds. It was what hockey, I guess, was meant to be. But they booed our national anthem. Screw them. I would have dropped my gloves too.
They always. So now I'm not the world's biggest hockey expert. Don't they always? They've booed the national anthem in Montreal forever. I don't know. That's good hockey. I know some. See, here's the thing, Clement. Anytime something happens in sports, right? The politics people or the content creators are so quick to rally. And I don't know. Maybe Canada's pissed at the United States. I don't know if that makes its way down to the hockey players or not. I just think that's how hockey players are wired. And I love it. I love that they care and they want to beat the pulp out of each other. That's awesome.
Well, some of the flying board checks were incredible too. My son's never watched sports in his life. He was passing through. He said, "Holy crap, what was that?" I said, "Yeah, he flew through the air to give a board check." I don't even know if that's legal, but the referees were letting him play. So, and then the score is 3-1. But actually, I think it was worse than that because they beat them pretty badly. But yeah, it was. They've been booing. Last week they booed a 15-year-old U.S. American citizen singing the national anthem. So. Too bad they couldn't have hurt him worse, but they beat him good. So
and I think they'll probably beat him again in the final. I just got loaded phone lines, Clemhead. I did not see Saturday Night Live. I went back and watched a lot of it because I was so interested. I was out at dinner because I couldn't secure a reservation for Valentine's Day on Friday, so we did Saturday. So I missed the beginning. I saw a little bit of the third period, but the fireworks I saw after the fact. And a very good event. And see, this is what look, you guys can think what you want. Maybe I'm naive, but Q's on the live stream saying the USA versus Canada fight was because of Trump. Have hockey players ever needed an excuse to beat the absolute balls out of each other? I don't know that it's that deep. I don't know. I think one half of our political party is like, oh, Trump's ruining, he's pissing off our neighbor Canada. And then the other political party is like, how dare Canada boo our national. They've always done that in Montreal. I don't know. Maybe the international relations are a little strained, but I at least would like to believe that hockey players just were fired up to play hockey against a rival and prove that their countrymen were better. And I don't know. Maybe I'm naive, but the politics stuff, I don't really need it. It's been great hockey, and it was really fun to watch them play high-level hockey, not just beat each other up, which is fun, but it's been good hockey. And I'm not typically a hockey guy, but I have enjoyed it so far as well. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
It's Darnell.
Hey, Darnell, what's up?
Hey, well, first off, that the Four Nations tournament thing is it's in lieu of an All-Star game for the NHL.
Yeah.
And it's such a better product than anything that the NFL or the NBA or the MLB can put out. Like real passion, real like intensity in these games. If you watched any of the NBA stuff on Sunday, it was just it's dog crap the whole time. It was just terrible. So like props to the NHL for finding something that the players can get behind, something that they can feel really strongly about. And I think that's kind of where Giannis was going. I know people have been making fun of him as like a communist all day, which is funny.
Me,
right?
But I have been, yeah.
I know, but like,
yeah. Here's the thing on the All-Star game. Okay, maybe the NHL found the format, and this is that. Maybe they found the secret to get good games over the All-Star break. I also think that hockey players are wired differently, and they're just ready to go, and they operate and they behave a little bit differently than basketball players. So I don't know. Everyone's dragging Adam Silver today. Adam Silver's players don't want to do it. What's he supposed to do? He can try different formats, but if the players aren't going to take it seriously, it doesn't matter. So that's why if the players aren't fired up to do it, I'm just not going to watch. So I didn't watch last night. I think it's the difference between the cultures of the players in the sports. You know what I mean? I think that's the biggest factor between the difference over an All-Star break like this.
I think that's fair. And also, when the MLB took away home field advantage in the World Series for the All-Star game, it lost a lot of its luster. And that was 5-10 years ago. I don't know how long ago that was now, but things used to mean something. And then one other thing, not your father or your brother's Badgers, and that couldn't be any more true. I was looking through some old tweets of mine, and I saw I had retweeted something that Evo posted, and it was Pete from Monona said that watching Greg Gard basketball is like liking missionary sex with a condom.
Pete said that?
Greg Gard. He said, yeah.
Wow.
Pete from Monona said that a couple years ago. Boy, has he just adapted and changed. Like, because that's what people used to think was, Greg Gard's vanilla, 60 points per game, play good defense, and hope no one scores 70 points. Right? And yeah, my God, that was just a gorgeous game to watch on Saturday, and I want to see more of that.
It was beautiful. And it's not just because Wisconsin won. Darnell, I appreciate it. Although as Wisconsin fans, it's a big part of it. But, a week removed from the end of football season now, we're in a little bit of a sports, not dead period, because there's a lot going on, but we're transitioning from football season to, March Madness is about to get really, college basketball into March Madness starting to take over. Golf, Daytona, right? And on the first day, the Saturday of the weekend following the Super Bowl, we get this gem on CBS, the score bug, the announcers, it just all felt big. It all felt meaningful. Now Wisconsin won, which certainly helped. Like that does a lot for us as fans, but what an excellent product, even for a third-party observer. We got time for one more call before our break here. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? Hello? All right, then we'll go to our break. We'll come back. Maybe I had time to get text. It's a little bit earlier than I thought. 608-321-1670. You can text as well. I don't have a ton, but I'll get to one or two here. AJ in Janesville says, most impressive part of Saturday might be that they put up 94 with newly found offensive stalwart Carter Gilmore only scoring 2. Right? Carter Gilmore. Purdue kept Carter Gilmore down, and they still managed to score 60 points in the second half and almost score 100 overall. They scored 95 in total. Also, Stephen Crowell. So I did a Twitter space yesterday, and I was kind of frustrated with Stephen Crowell after the game. Like, first gut check reaction right after the game. I was kind of frustrated with him because he didn't have an answer for Trey Coffin-Wren at all. Like, Coffin-Wren, I think he had 30 If he didn't have 30, he had close to 30. I don't have the box score in front of me. He had a great game. He kind of got whatever he wanted. And Crowell not only couldn't really stop him, but Crowell was also in foul trouble, and I think he finished with 1 rebound. I'm not going to reverse course and say, actually, Crowell had a pretty good game, because Crowell, for the most part, was a non-factor, but he had 3 of the flashiest assists. Like the one wraparound pass, I think, to Tanjay around the double team was beautiful. He had another pass, which the entry pass is kind of a lost art. There's not a lot of guys who could throw a perfect entry pass anymore. He threw one from the top of the key in a high-low to Nolan Winter that dropped it right here. I can't remember what his third assist was, but 2 of the 3 were legitimate highlights, like creating a bucket type assists, not just pitching it out to an open guy, but a wraparound to double team and a teardrop high-low kind of entry pass down to Winter, which was beautiful as well. And he hit a big 3 coming out of half. I'm not going to act like Stephen Crowell was amazing, but I think all the more impressive that Wisconsin scores 94, beats Purdue at Mackey, and Stephen Crowell had a ho-hum game, which normally when Wisconsin plays a really, really high-level opponent, and this will be true of Illinois, even though we learned today they'll be shorthanded without their best rebounder on Tuesday, we kind of look at Stephen Crowell. If he brings it and he brings the intensity and he asserts himself, they win, and if not, they don't. Well, I don't think he really asserted himself in the very few opportunities he had. I actually think he made a couple of really, really significant plays, but impressive that Wisconsin can go down to Mackey, get that win, when Stephen Crowell was mostly, I think, the fifth option among starters, and Janicki, and there were other players off the bench who I thought were even more impactful. So it just speaks to the depth of this team. And I want to be fair to Crowell. He didn't have an insane game, but a couple really good passes and a huge 3-pointer from the top of the key coming out of half, kind of to set the tone early on in the first minute out of the locker room in half number 2. Let's take a break. More of your calls I can get to you. Otherwise, I have a little bit more Badger audio, and I want to talk about a little bit further why this performance and some of Greg Gard's comments make me feel a little bit more excited for their potential down the regular season, into the Big Ten tournament, and beyond into March Madness. So we'll do that next. It's the Wisco Sports Show.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. Wisco Sports Show will resume in The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
We are seeing a Wisconsin team that's the best one since the likes of Decker and Kaminsky were on campus and they made the national title game. That was the last time a Wisconsin team was this good and certainly this offensively capable. Real dangerous team. This is finally the result that Wisconsin fans have been waiting on to make everyone start sitting up and paying attention to what's possible and what's going down in Madison.
That's Matt Norlander, CBS Sports. I believe from Saturday. It might have been on some Sports HQ show yesterday. I found that clip this morning and saved it. And it's sentiment. I almost said cementiment. It's sentiment that I've heard from multiple folks. There's a couple of takes or I guess choruses that you can hear about Wisconsin's basketball team right now. If you watch any form of national college basketball coverage or, people with blogs or with platforms, because college basketball is an inherently nerdy sport, which I think is a reason why sometimes it's a little bit of a bear to follow, but also why it can be really rewarding and fun to follow if you have the free time or if you have a team. There's two things that I keep hearing. Number one, and it's something that Darnell said when he called in last segment. So this isn't your father's Badger team, right? That's everyone's line, which is something, we've kind of been saying that since the first month of the season. But now that Wisconsin's getting some national recognition, they're 11th, up to 11th in the AP today. They're now top 10 in the KenPom. They're 9th. Like, this team is getting recognized. Greg Gard talked about that on Saturday. It just means we're playing good basketball. People are taking notice. So you hear a lot of, this ain't your father's Badgers team. And you also hear, this is Wisconsin's best team since, 2014, 2015. That doesn't mean this team's about to go on a Final Four run. It just means, like, this is dynamic and complete and deep and certainly as offensively capable as we've seen a Badger team since those Final Four teams. And that's kind of the guidepost, right? That's the point of reference that most people are going to use with Wisconsin. That's just how it works, because those are, not just some of the most memorable Wisconsin teams, but two of the most memorable college basketball teams ever, certainly from the last 10 or 20 years. So of course, people are going to use that as a point of reference. To go back to something that Greg Gard said, and I'm going to play this for the third and final time. This is him describing what those huddles were like post the Kamari McGee ejection.
Just how they rallied together. I think actually McGee getting, the ejection actually threw more gas on our fire and really united us and I probably talked less in these huddles today than I have all years because they were so engaged and so instrumental and instructive with what they wanted to do and what they felt was working and both ends of the floor.
That comment to me says a lot about the way that they're wired, says a lot about their mettle and their makeup, right? Because Kamari McGee gets thrown out. It would be human nature for a group of 20-year-olds. I feel like that's BS. No wonder Purdue never loses here, right? There's no chance it's rigged against us. But what Gard is describing, and what I heard from a couple players, Jack Janicki, one of them, and I have some comments from him that I'll play for you before the end of the show, right? Talking about like, no, that actually made us focus more, actually woke us up a little bit. And Gard's saying, yeah, I've talked. I've never talked that little. That's as little as I've talked in a huddle all year, just because they were so focused and obviously so aware of what was needed from them and what the game demanded of them at that point on the road at Mackey, down 9 points, right? Just a minute or two after McGee was ejected. And then they finished the half on a 10-1 or 10-2 run. And then they come out and grab the game by the horns in the second half, and they never look back. That comment from Gard tells me a lot about the way the team is wired. And you need a certain type of wiring. You need the right type of metal and makeup to win games on the road at Purdue, for example, or to beat Illinois at home coming up tomorrow night. As Wisconsin will try to win their first game in 10 attempts. Illinois has beat them 9 straight times now with Brad Underwood. Or later this year to go to the Breslin Center, if it's still called that, I think it's still called that, to beat Michigan State. Because after Illinois on Tuesday, that's their most difficult remaining game on their schedule. They're going to have to play Penn State and Michigan. I'm trying to think of who else they have. But it's Illinois Tuesday and then at Michigan State. And that game could be for a lot of marbles, depending on how Purdue bounces back from these last 2 losses, depending on how Michigan handles their business moving forward. They've had some close calls, but they've won a lot of games. That's a good team. So we'll see. They need a certain type of metal. A college basketball team needs a certain type of makeup in the last month of the season to play teams below you in the standings without falling into a trap looking down the schedule, right? For example, if you got to play Penn State at home, Penn State's awful. You got Michigan State coming up on Saturday. Well, maybe you trip up on Tuesday night looking ahead. Teams that are going to hang banners for a regular season conference title or make a run in the conference tournament or in March Madness in the NCAA tournament, those types of teams have a certain mettle, a certain focus that doesn't allow them to get tripped up, that allows them to go on the road and even amidst an ejection and a 9-point deficit, allows them to stay in the game and to come back and, to stack wins in an environment like the Big Ten tournament or in the NCAA tournament. And what Greg Gard had to say after the game and the way the team responded to Kamari McGee's ejection, it tells me a lot about the makeup of this team, right? And, I'm mentioning the postseason. I'm mentioning conference tournament play and NCAA tournament play. I like to separate the two. Don't get me wrong. Like, I prefer to separate the regular season and the postseason. I am not someone, and I think these people, I guess if you want to live your life this way as a Wisconsin sports fan, you can. But if you found yourself after Saturday's win saying and thinking things like, well, we'll see when March comes around if this team is really... No, this team is really different. This team is way better than the last 4 or 5 teams. They're showing it to you now. They're proving it now in their Big Ten schedule right now. Now, will that amount to a long run in one of the postseason tournaments? Maybe, maybe not. That doesn't mean that the success that they're enjoying right now should be discounted because, well, it could all come crashing down in March. And even if it does, I don't know that that's totally indicative of success. I want to play you this cut. This is Evan Flood on Bill's show earlier today talking about this idea of, well, we'll see what happens in March. I like to separate the two, and I play this cut because Evan agrees with me.
Made my stance on the NCAA tournament clear in the past. I don't necessarily buy it as a litmus test for how good of a season you had. I mean, look, it's one bad matchup, one bad shooting game, and you're done. I would never trade a Big Ten title for an extra game or 2 in March. Now, on the same hand, Greg Gard needs this, right? I mean, he's won regular season titles. He's had success in the Big Ten tournament now. Hasn't gotten that title yet. With a roster that's entirely his own, he has not gotten to that second weekend. If you want to argue, I know people like to argue, whether it was Bo Ryan recruits or Greg Gard recruits, whatever, so be it. However, with some of the quick exits he's had recently, I think he needs this. I think the program needs this.
So I think everything that Evan said was true, which is why I played it, by the way. Like, I think Badgers fans should separate as much as possible regular season play, Big Ten conference play, from the conference tournament, from the NCAA tournament. It's almost like 2 or 3 different seasons. Now, look, if a team wins the Big Ten regular season title, wins the Big Ten tournament, and then goes and loses, in a 15-2 matchup in March Madness, well, yeah, that detracts from the quality of the season. Now, if they win a regular season title, that banner hangs forever. If they win the conference tournament, that banner hangs forever. But it takes a little bit of the luster away, of course, right? I think we need to separate as much as we reasonably and fairly can the regular season from the postseason. Now, as Evan said, Greg Gard is in a little bit of a spot here where, yeah, if you were to win a Big Ten regular season title, it'd be huge. You can hang a banner, but Greg Gard's at the point now where we got to have a run at some point. You know what I mean? And we had this conversation last year and I think the year before. But they've been out of the first weekend in, I don't know, off the top of my head, right? At some point, it doesn't need to be every year. And the deepest runs in the NCAA tournament don't need to coincide with the teams we believe to be best or the teams that had the most successful regular seasons. A lot of times it's fluky and it's a little bit of a crapshoot. A team that you don't think has any chance in the Big Ten tournament or in the NCAA tournament all of a sudden goes on a run, or vice versa. You think that this is the best Michigan State team you've ever seen, and then they lose in a 15-2 matchup to Middle Tennessee or whoever it was. There is a certain level of randomness, but there has been no randomness for Greg Gard's teams in the NCAA tournament because they haven't gotten out of the first weekend. So if every 3 or 4 or 5 years you can get a run to the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8, okay, as long as those runs are mixed in and dispersed throughout a period of regular season sustained success, great. What you can't have is the situation that we've started to find ourselves in with Greg Gard, where it's like there are no runs without fail. The best teams, the worst teams, none of them are getting out of the first round. So at some point, Gard does need a little bit of a run in March. And if not this year, I start to wonder when it's going to happen, because this team seems like the best team they've had in a while, and certainly the deepest, right? A lot of star power scoring between Tonje and Blackwell. You need a bucket late. You can go to those guys, senior experience, guys like Crowell, Klesmet, and Gilmore now as well, McGee as well. Like, this is a team that's wired the right way and they're built the right way to win games in the postseason. Doesn't mean they necessarily will, because the NCAA tournament is a crapshoot, but Wisconsin's due. You got to go on runs at some point, right? It doesn't necessarily need to make logical sense because it's a crapshoot, but at some point you gotta. And Greg Gard just hasn't. The program hasn't in a while. So if not this year, then I start to wonder a little bit, because this team's better positioned than I think just about any team, maybe since the last time they were Sweet 16 with Nigel and Bronson Koenig. Let's take a couple-minute break. Have some time for your calls on the other side. Plenty of empty phone lines if you want to grab them. 608-321-1670. We'll wrap up hour number 1 of the Wisco Sports Show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show, couple minutes here before 5 o'clock. And hey, you know what? Let's do this. At 5 o'clock, a big announcement for the show. And an actual thing. I know last week I told you we had a big announcement, and then the announcement was we hired a WEAC reporter. By the way, follow Dale Jorgensen, Nakusa Register on Twitter. He'll join us on Wednesday for a couple minutes, bring us the latest in Division III athletics around the state. This is an actual announcement pertaining to tomorrow night's show that I'll share with you coming up after 5 o'clock after we get Zach's update. Back to the phones as promised. I don't want you to wait any longer than you have been. Thanks for sitting through the break. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, it's Uncle Packer.
Hey, Uncle Packer. What's going on?
I just wanted to say, this is not my dad's team. My dad was born in 1900s. I don't think there was a team back then. If he did, they didn't follow him.
This isn't, I don't have an older brother, but if I had an older brother, this wouldn't be his Badgers team either. This is brand new. You know what I mean?
As a Wisconsin sports fan, and I really like the Badgers, I'm not that, I watched the game on Saturday and I loved it. They came back. I don't know them yet. I'm learning the players, but I'm jumping on the bandwagon with both feet. I'm really excited about this season.
Well,
and I hope we go. I think that's what they keep track of is where we go in March.
Yeah,
I hope we do good in March.
I think you got to weigh it all, right? And that's why college basketball is an interesting sport, right? A successful season isn't necessarily defined by the conference tournament or the NCAA tournament or just the regular season. I think they're all slightly different, and you can assign your own amount of weights to each. I just hate the idea. Look, if the Badgers, let's say they win a share of the Big Ten regular season title, they hang a banner, and then they lose in game number 2 that comes down to the wire, and they fail to make the second weekend. That doesn't take away what they did in the regular season. That just means they weren't also able to succeed in the NCAA tournament.
No, I agree. I agree with you 100%. But I'm thinking that if they just get hot, they get healthy, and they go into this tournament, who knows where we'll end up. It'd be fun to watch. It's going to be fun to watch. It makes me excited for March Madness for the first time in a few years.
Yeah. Yeah. This team's just, they got scoring options. They got all of the things. They got the things that you're, excited to see in March for sure. Yeah.
I wanted to say that Clemhead Mike said something about a movie called Slapshot.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Have you ever seen the movie Slapshot?
I have not. I've seen Goon, but I've never seen Slapshot.
Now you got to watch Slapshot. Now it's the best hockey. It's the best thing about hockey.
Oh.
I mean, it's better. Going to hockey games is fun, but you got to sit down sometime and watch Slapshot. So us old guys, you know what we're talking about when we reference it. Okay.
Who's in Slapshot?
It's a great movie. It's goofy, but it's fun.
Oh, it's from 77. Oh, I recognize I recognize some of the pictures. Okay, the guys sitting on the bench with the bleeding noses. Yeah, I know this.
Yeah, those guys. I told you one time I had shirts from the Hanson brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Those are those guys. Those 3 guys. I have their jerseys. It's funny. I just like these guys. They're from Minnesota. And they were the Hanson brothers, and they really played hockey in Minnesota.
Of course,
it's kind of a cool story.
Everybody plays hockey, so I'll add this to my list. I got a bachelor week and then a bachelor weekend, so maybe I'll find some time. I'm still and now I can't remember his name. I can hear his voice for David and Madison. I still got to watch The Godfather at some point. I'm behind on my media requests, Uncle Packer. I'll add it to the pile. One more call here before hour number 2. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, Tom in Oak Creek. How are you?
Hey, Tom. Doing good. How about you?
Oh, doing all right. So a couple quick thoughts and a question for you.
Yeah.
When What a great win from the Badgers on Saturday. I feel bad for anyone who has not been watching this team. They are just flat out fun to watch.
And it can be
really
someone
just
different. Like to your point and Uncle Packer's point, like over the course of that game, it was somebody different every couple of minutes. Like Janicki would have a run, and then Tanjay would have a run, and Blackwell would have a run. It's a very fun team to watch because they say variety is the spice of life. I think that's true for this team.
Absolutely. And I will say, I'm just amazed with the job Guard has done and how he's adapted and modernized the program. Not only just the offense, but also the use of the transfer portal. I mean, they've really hit the jackpot 2 years in a row. And as we know from Phil Longo and the football team, modernization is not always smooth and easy.
No, I don't know. I think he's done it slowly. I don't think it happened overnight going into this year, even though that kind of is what it feels like. But, adding Kurt Penny, remaking the staff, redoing some things. And I'm interested to see how they work the portal this offseason, and especially how they work to retain Blackwell and Nolan Winter, right? Did they learn anything losing Storr and Hepburn about, organizing things, commuting with their players to keep them around? Because I think those two will probably get interest from elsewhere, and I'm interested to see how they go about keeping Blackwell and Winter, who are set to be juniors. Both of them are sophomores.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And Nolan Winter has been leaps and bounds better. I mean, his game can be in clips. You see almost like some Frank Kaminsky hit the three post move. He really could take off. So I would imagine he'll be a hot commodity in the transfer portal.
Well,
if he were to go, hopefully not.
If he were to go, well, and that's the thing. Like, I appreciate the call, Tom. Thanks for listening in Oak Creek. These guys don't necessarily hit the portal. People just reach out to him. It's like, hey, Nolan, you happy at Wisconsin? All right, cool. Well, what if we were to throw, $700,000 at you? You know what I mean? That's what I think happened with Hepburn. And I don't pretend to know all the details. I don't care to know all the details because are you on my team or not? Okay, if you're going elsewhere, best of luck to you. Maybe you take some parting shots at you on your way out the door. But for the most part, like, best of luck. Okay, now I'm going to focus on who is on my team. Who am I watching? I don't really care to know the dirty details of the, I guess, let's say, the inner workings and the legalities of paying college players. I don't care. I don't want to care. I hope I never have to care past the current level that I'm carrying, which is little as possible. So I know that Coach Greg Gard, talked about this with Jesse and Zach on the swing last week. It's like we've actually been, working and communicating with Nolan and with Blackwell, even going back into the summer about working to retain them, right? Maybe getting out in front of this thing. I don't know if that'll prove to be effective. God, I hope Blackwell and Winter are back. I think it would be best for them both, right? They're playing some high-level basketball at a program with plenty of name recognition and brand recognition. Their games are developing. I don't know, to go somewhere else to chase a bunch of money, sometimes it works, right? I mean, just getting the money, that in and of itself, that's a win, right? Are you going to further advance and better your basketball career? Ask someone like AJ Storr, who's now at Kansas and is kind of public enemy number one at Lawrence, at least every time I look on the internet. I know the internet is an especially nasty place, but I also think that the internet is often representative, at least on some level, of how a fan base is feeling. Not always, but a lot of times I think you can learn a little bit about public sentiment for a player or for a coach or for, whatever, by just looking at the internet, right? What do they say? The X is the everything app. Is that what we're calling it now? I know before it was the town square, but now it's covered with porn and racism. So I guess it's not the town square because you wouldn't have that in the town square. It's the everything app. You can get everything, including sports content and lots of good things. And, every once in a while you'll just see some porn. That's not a political commentary. That's just what Twitter is. That's what X is. That's not a political thing. I'm quite literally stating what it is. And it's not kind to AJ Storr. It's not kind to a lot of people, but it's especially not kind to AJ Storr. We'll come back. Big show announcement for tomorrow night. We'll get to that. Back to your phone calls. The Monday mailbag still to come as well. First, a 2-minute update from Zach Halper. No commercials. Be right back.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Illinois. Badgers have lost 9 straight to the Illini, including earlier this year in Champaign. But Wisconsin coming off a massive win at Purdue on Saturday that kept them in the conversation for a Big Ten title, sitting in 4th place and 2 games back of conference leader Michigan. Badgers' strong year also had them as a number 3 seed when the NCAA revealed its bracket preview before the Purdue game. Coach Greg Gard was asked what he thought of that placement.
We got a lot of basketball left to play before that day comes, so that's great. That means we got the attention of people, right? And obviously playing good basketball. We're a really good team, and I think we're getting better, and that's the exciting part, that they know there's a lot more left to come, and it starts with our next game.
Again, Wisconsin going to face Illinois tomorrow night. There are just 6 games left in the regular season. Tip is at 7:30 tomorrow. Meanwhile, Bucks still off as the All-Star break continues. Could be back in action on Thursday when the Clippers visit Fiserv Forum. Milwaukee enters the second half of the season at 29-24 and with the 5th best record in the Eastern Conference.
Always technology can connect us. Unfortunately, there are online scammers who want to take advantage. Malicious viruses, phishing scams, and identity theft are more prevalent than ever. That's why Rural Mutual includes cybersecurity protection as an option on every policy.
Well, most of the Brewers players have arrived for spring training down in Arizona. The first official full team workout slated for tomorrow. Milwaukee will open up Texas League play this coming Saturday. And the NFL Combine will get underway a week from today in Indy. 3 former Badgers will be there. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, Print.
Wisconsin's going to fall just shy of 100 points at Purdue. This team is for real. 5 seconds left. Another jumper for Cox. In and out, and that's it. Strong statement by the Wisconsin Badgers. They come into West Lafayette and knock off Purdue.
Obviously playing good basketball. We're a really good team, and I think we're getting better. And that's the exciting part, that they know there's a lot more left to come. And, it starts with our next game.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Happy President's Day, by the way. Forgot it was President's Day. Well, I didn't forget, because forgetting would indicate that I ever had it on my radar, and I never did. I'm sorry. I realized at lunch today, oh, shoot, it's President. Happy President's Day. And I say that with no disrespect to any president, past or current. They're all good. They should be celebrated, our president. So happy President's Day. Going to get back to your phone calls here in just a minute. If you have any thoughts on Wisconsin Purdue, that's been our bread and butter today. But if you have thoughts on the NBA All-Star game, I haven't really dug deep into that. I don't think I'm going to dig that deep, but I can give you 2 minutes. I can give you a take on it. The hockey was fun over the weekend. I actually watched the Hyundai Genesis Invitational. Not because I planned to, but I ended up at a tire shop yesterday because between the ice and the snow and the tire, it just needed a little adjustment. It was a little out of balance. I was on the interstate and it's like, it just needed to be like a chiropractor, but for a car. Like, it just needed to be set back into place. So I'm sitting at this place. I found a place that was open on a Sunday. Thank goodness. And I was sitting in the lobby and there was a TV and it was the only thing that was on, because Daytona was on later in the day. The All-Star break was on later on in the day, the All-Star game. But there was golf on, so I watched that. It was nice, if nothing else, I think it was Pebble Beach. Shows how closely I paid attention, how much I absorbed it. But the sights and sounds of golf and Jim Nantz on CBS. Always a good broadcast, so that's what I did. Any thoughts on any of that? The Monday mailbag coming up in about 40 minutes. 60 seconds before we get back to the phone calls. A big announcement for tomorrow night's show. We will be broadcasting live at the Kohl Center leading up to Wisconsin, Illinois. Same time, nothing will change, but if you're watching the live stream or listening, you might hear some noise in the background. That's where we will be, up in the press section from 4 to 6. And I am hoping, although I think he has some media obligations, that Zach will be joining us for the last half hour, 40 minutes, whenever we can get him, even if it's just for the last segment. I think Zach is going to join us because he's going to be there for the game as well. This is how you know it's a big one, when the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network throws all of its journalistic heft at a game, sending not just Zach, but sending myself as well. And sending is an exaggeration. I basically begged Zach to get me in, and he did. But we'll be broadcasting live from the press. But it's not really a press box. It's just kind of a section where the media is at the Kohl Center. So I won't be able to take your calls tomorrow. I'll try to get to your comments and your texts, and we'll try to interact that way. But I'm hoping to bring you some audio and some takes on the heels of Wisconsin, Illinois, and hope to be joined by Zach and whoever else is floating around. If Nick Osen gets there early, I'll grab him too. He's not getting off so easy, not jumping on tomorrow. Okay, back to the call. So looking forward to that tomorrow night. Just mark it down. Make sure it should be an extra fun thing leading into the game. 608-321-1670. Back to your calls. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant. Happy President's Day. Happy Victory Monday. It's a great day.
It is. Happy President's Day, Cone. Did you work today or did you have today off?
No, working. I don't know why the United States doesn't honor President's Day as a federal holiday, really. I mean, maybe the banks are closed, maybe the government's closed, but everyday working Americans, I think are still all going into work today.
Yeah. The everyday, the ham and egg men like us, Cone. I forgot today was a holiday. But I noticed like Cowherd was off today, and I was talking in a group chat, and they're like, well, it's a holiday. And oh yeah, it's President's Day. That's right. But a Victory Monday, certainly for the Badgers. I'm not going to say I didn't expect it, Cone. I was hopeful, but I thought if they were going to win one of these two, that it would be tomorrow night against Illinois. So a very pleasant surprise and one of my favorite Badger games in a long time.
Yeah, that was just fun all around. I mean, it started off a little bad with Kamari McGee getting it unrightfully ejected. But just an awesome way to bounce back. And, all those videos that the Wisconsin Badger, Instagram account has been putting up of pregame, halftime, postgame. I mean, just like goosebumps, chills watching those videos and just the way Guard commands the locker room.
Yeah, and I loved Guard's comment. If you've been listening, Cone, I played it a couple times. I'll play it again here in the next 10 or 15 minutes. But talking about how he was actually as quiet as he's been all year in huddles this year because he could just tell how dialed and how focused his team was. I loved hearing that. That gets my hopes high for the conference tournament and then March Madness.
Absolutely. You just got a mature team out there. I mean, Tanjay's 25? He might be on AARP soon. Klesmit's played a lot of ball. Blackwell's played a lot of ball. Crowell especially. I mean, he's getting into Tyler Wall territory. So just very mature team. You saw that on Saturday. And, let's break the streak tomorrow. I'm glad you're going to be there doing a little pregame show that's going to really bring the energy.
Yeah.
And, tomorrow night's really going to be must watch.
Yeah. And I know Brad Underwood doesn't want to see me coming in a postgame presser. Appreciate it, Cone. Figured we'd hear from you today as a Badger booster, Cone Roller, big time Badger booster, but also a diehard Badgers hoops fan. I'm going to be there tomorrow night with Zach. I'm looking forward to that. Really looking forward to that. It works out. Look, I go cover games when this is very, very selfish of me. I go cover games when I have like a week or a weekend where I have nothing else going on. If my significant other is out of town, which is the case this week, it's like, well, I got nothing going on. Wisconsin, Illinois. It doesn't start until 7:30, which is awesome. Because if the game starts at 6, I'm doing the show until 6. I can't get there. I can't get down to the Kohl Center in time. But this is just a perfect storm. It's the same when I cover baseball games too. It's like, oh, we got nothing going on this weekend. I'll go cover the Brewer game on Sunday. And then I got to get interrogated by Zach. Why do you want to go cover this game? I don't know, Zach. I try to do the thing that I think all sports radio people should do. Every once in a while, you should have to put on a credential and go sit in the press box with all the beat reporters who you might talk smack about on the air. You should have to go ask the manager, ask the coach, face the music, ask the questions that you're always yelling into the microphone. So I try to do that when I am able. And when I try to do it, what do I get from Zach? Why do you want to go? What's your angle? He always thinks I have an angle. I'm just trying to do my job, Zach. Just trying to bring excellent coverage to our audience, to our listeners, to our community. I don't see why that deems interrogation, but Zach's just, that's the kind of guy he is. And I don't mean that in a bad way. He just always assumes I'm scheming. I'm not scheming, Zach. Only the best of intentions at the Kohl Center tomorrow night. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This is Louie in Eau Claire.
What's going on, Louie?
Hey, Grant. Thanks for the Badger basketball talk. They've been entertaining all season long, but I'm glad to see that people are catching on. It was an exhilarating win against Purdue, but like you, I kind of heard the tail end. It was a little bit disheartening, kind of a down to back to earth moment here when talking about trying to keep Nolan Winter and John Blackwell and how that's kind of right at the front of the mind right away.
Yeah.
And it's like, God damn, really they got to talk about that right now? But it is what it is. I do have a lot of appreciation. as maligned and kind of rightfully so as Steve Crowell's been, as Carter Gilmore has been, those guys have stuck it out. And, you know, they can say they don't listen to social media and that sort of thing. How can you not hear that? But those guys could have gone at any time left, gone to a different program, fresh start. Those guys stuck around. And then Jack Janicki, he had scholarship offers, Division I scholarship offers, and he chose to walk on.
He had a bunch of them. He had like 3 or 4. I found that list earlier today. Let me look that up. He had a bunch of them.
Like, these guys, they want to be Wisconsin Badgers, and that's kind of a throwback to kind of a bygone era. And those guys aren't necessarily the reason why they're winning, but they're playing a part, and I appreciate that as a fan.
I do too. And look, I don't think, Louis, that it's ever going to be like it used to be, where every kid grows up in the state of Wisconsin. I appreciate the call. And I want to play for the Badgers. And if I got to walk on, right, if I got to start on the club team and work my way up, like I don't think that that's ever going to happen again. Right now, I hope Wisconsin attracts players from in-state. I mean, we're not that far removed from Johnny Davis going to Wisconsin and being awesome, right? So obviously not every high-level player from Wisconsin is going to grow up and dream of being a Badger and want to go to it. Right? It's just, it's never going to be that way again. But I also think this Badger team is a pretty good compromise. Maybe that's a good word. It's a compromise between this new era of college basketball and, you know, historically what Wisconsin has been, which is in-state guys developing slowly, right? This team has some of that. Carter Gilmore's been here forever and finally kind of come of age and is playing a role where he's really making an impact. So we can't just look past that. Kamari McGee's from the state of Wisconsin, right? Much of the same. Jack Janicki isn't from Wisconsin. I think he's from White Bear Lake. Is he from the Twin Cities? I can't remember. I could be wrong. And if I'm very wrong, I'm sorry. There's a lot of Twin Cities guys on this roster, you know, between, and now of course I can't think of any, but there's a bunch from Nolan Winter, and others. So of course I can only think of one. You know what I'm saying? But I think this team, look, we can bemoan the current state of college basketball if we really want. But I think this team is just about the best version of a Wisconsin team. Isn't this all that you can ask for? Right? This is what Wisconsin should strive to be. Well, we want to keep in-state guys in-state, and in a weird way, in a roundabout way, Klesmit's kind of an in-state guy, even though he started at Wofford. He made his way back here. So there are in-state players, and there's even an in-state player like Carter Gilmore who bided his time and waited for an opportunity, which we love, right? A guy who has to mature and grow and earn his minutes, earn his stripes. So the team has part of that. Team also has, you know, transfers coming in. This is an attractive place to come and play. Look at John Tonje or Xavier Amos, right? AJ Storr last year. So if you can get some of those transfers like that to come in and supplement, you know, some of the in-state guys, and then also, you know, get some high-level recruits. Nolan Winter is a guy with NBA tools. John Blackwell as well, right? So I think this team is such a perfect mix of all of the best parts of college basketball currently. And if Wisconsin can kind of keep this type of mix, if they can keep this type of, mix is the perfect word. And I mean, mix is in a little bit of this, a little bit of that, some homegrown guys, some developmental guys, some recruits who are coming in to play here in their final year of eligibility, some toolsy NBA recruits. I mean, we haven't even talked about, and it shows I can't even remember his name, Freitag, who's from the cities. There's another Twin Cities guy. I think this team is the perfect mix of new and old and all of these different factors in the current state of college basketball. And Louis and Eau Claire was like, look, I don't want to think about retaining or worry about retaining Blackwell or Winter. This is a good problem to have. That means that you've recruited and coached up and developed guys who are talented and are going to turn heads. That's a good problem to have. And if you're recruiting and coaching players well, that's a problem that you're going to continue to have. So I'm interested to see how Wisconsin goes about trying to keep those guys. Again, Guard talked about that with Jesse and with Zach on the swing last week or the week before. They've been working on that for months now. It's not something where all of a sudden they're going to get to the end of the year and be like, all right, let's hope we can keep them. Something that they've been working on. Here is Greg Gard talking about, this is from Saturday, his team doing all they can to succeed in all the different arenas, the current arenas and you know, current categories, I guess, of player development and player acquisition in today's game.
In this day and age, as you've heard me talk about, is always, from a coach's standpoint, is always a question mark of how, in the transient nature of college athletics and rosters, but this group has committed to each other and committed to being the best team they can be.
Yeah, Janicki is a White Bear Lake guy. I don't know if you caught this on the broadcast on Saturday, but Ian Eagle said he was from White Bear Lake, Wisconsin. I'm like, I don't think there's not Bear Lake. There's like 6 people that live in Bear Lake. So I'm like, okay, I looked it up. Like, yes, White Bear. A couple of texts here. Johnny Driftless says, doesn't this seem like the point in the year where the Badgers rattle off 3 losses in a row after a marquee win? I don't know. They could. They get a little bit of a blessing tomorrow night because Merez Johnson is going to be out for Illinois. He's one of their best rebounders and the exact type of player who's given Wisconsin fits. And Illinois has had a lot of those guys. So Illinois or Wisconsin should be, and I haven't looked, I would imagine they're 2.5-point favorites tomorrow night. Huge game at home with the students now back. I really think the Kohl Center should be on another level tomorrow night. Now, looking forward, they got games against Minnesota and they got a game against Penn State. Those could be classic trap games. Looking ahead to a team like Michigan State, they got to go to the Breslin Center and see Izzo's team at some point. Who knows the place that Izzo's squad will be in a couple weeks from now, because as Nick Osen shared with us on Friday, their schedule's about to get really, really difficult. So we'll see where they're at. I don't know. I don't like the attitude. Well, this is where it'll fall apart. I don't know. Maybe if it happens, then we'll complain about it. But I've never felt like I need to be the first person in line to say things are going poorly. You know what I mean? West Texan says, Grant, what happened to Johnny Davis? I think he's in Memphis now. He's traded from Washington. Didn't exactly do a whole lot at Washington with the Wizards. John Driftless does follow it up and say, yeah, on the other hand, this team does feel different. Eric and Hudson said golf was Torrey Pines. Did I say Torrey Pines or did I say Pebble Beach? I meant Torrey Pines down towards San Diego because I think it was supposed to be somewhere near LA, but the wildfires, I don't know. I was watching in the lobby of a tire shop. So, excuse me. I'm not a golf person in general, so I didn't absorb most of it. But I remember it being at Torrey Pines and there being a wildfire. And I don't know. CBS does good broadcast. It was an enjoyable watch. I was in the lobby. My phone was dead. I'm waiting for my car. My phone is dead. I'm watching Direct TV. Thank God they had cable, not YouTube TV or some cheap knockoff. I quite literally would not have been able to watch the golf because CBS isn't on YouTube TV or Google TV or Hulu or whatever. 3 minutes. I'll take more of your calls. We'll continue talking. I'll give you a thought on the NBA All-Star game. We'll do that next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. I got a tweet at Wisco Grant. You can tweet me. You can also watch the show, the live stream at Wisco Grant. One of my earliest listeners, or at least earliest tweeters from years ago, I always enjoy hearing from on the internet. Jeremy Anscani at Yelwad tweets, other than not having Brewer games or MLB Network, huge emissions, YouTube TV is a phenomenal product. To which I replied, as I'm sure, look, if you don't need to watch your favorite NBA team or your favorite Major League Baseball team, and if you don't need to see CBS, March Madness, Survivor, NFL, Yellowstone on Paramount Network, as long as you don't need any of that, I'm sure it's great. And if you don't mind that it costs $90 a month to boot when cable is slightly more, I don't know. I'm a cable purist. Just pay a little bit more than you think you should, and you'll have no issues. Now, if you want a nickel and dime, and well, if I get these 6 things and then I'll sign up for this free trial. If you want to do that, go right ahead. Let her rip. You go to town, okay? I will just pay slightly more than I think I should for cable. It's a little expensive. Yeah, you know what it is, okay? But I can DVR whatever I want, and I can watch whatever I want. And for the most part, every once in a while, there'll be a carriage issue. But not like, oh, by the way, the CBS network, we don't have that. And also, like, you didn't want to watch the Brewers or the Bucks, right? You're good. Okay, good. You can pay someone else to do that because we're not, yeah. We got Bravo, though. We got Bravo. And I know you pay for Peacock already, but if you want to watch it live, like we have it live. If you don't want to wait until next day streaming on Peacock, which is very reasonably priced. I believe last time I checked it, like $6.99, $7.99 a month. Excellent streaming service with lots of live sports, and get your reality TV fix as well. I know we've talked about the traders, Cohn and Darnell, currently what I'm spinning just a little bit. How about a thought on the NBA All-Star Game? Part of me didn't even want to bring this up today because here's what I don't like, okay? This is a classic sports radio thing. Happens a lot. We'll come out of a weekend like the one we just came out of with an amazing Wisconsin-Purdue game. The Four Nations face-off or whatever it's called. And I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it's the United States, Canada, Finland, Sweden. There's been some great hockey. I'm not a huge hockey guy, but I have turned it on here and there, and it's been great. So we had Wisconsin, Purdue, the Four Nation, the hockey, the Daytona 500, the Hyundai Genesis, which I watched yesterday, and the NBA All-Star Game. There's 5 things. And if we want to even zoom out, even bigger picture to the weekend, you also had SNL's 50th show, the big thing, the 50th anniversary. It wasn't their 50th show. That happened a long time ago, but SNL 50. It was a huge deal. A lot of people watched. So you have like 6 things to choose from, to talk about, to focus on. And what I don't like about sports radio or sports TV every once in a while when we have one of these weekends, the NBA All-Star Game was the worst product of the weekend. It sucked. And yet, that's what leads shows on Monday. Let's talk about how crummy the NBA All-Star Game is. Let's talk about how we can fix it. Let's talk about, and this started last week. I heard last week on sports radio shows like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Well, the All-Star Game is this weekend. Well, the All-Star Game sucks. How can we fix it? I don't like the how can we fix it segments. I don't like that. It's not my job to fix it. It's the commissioner's job. It's the players associate. It's the teams. It's the owners. That's their job. That's not my job. My job is to consume or not to consume. As a discerning consumer and viewer of media, it is my job. That's my job to decide to watch or not. It's not my job. You're not crowdsourcing, options of how to fix your crummy product. If the product is crummy, I'm not going to watch. That's my job. Their job is to figure out how to fix it or to get us to watch. It's not my job. But what bothers me is in a weekend where there was lots of great sports and entertainment going on, hosts will begin their shows on Monday. The NBA All-Star Game, that really sucked. That really blew. Oh, God, why is it so bad? Oh, the players suck. And Adam Silver, he's a bozo. I understand that this show is in a little bit of an advantageous spot because we could just talk about Wisconsin Purdue. But as a host or even as a producer with Bill, like, I would just rather talk about the thing that we liked. Let's just do that. Let's talk about the good thing. Instead of dwelling on the bad thing and bemoaning the bad thing, talk about how can we fix the bad thing. Let's just talk about the good thing. Let's talk about what we actually liked. But by the way, a healthier way to live life too. Like if you go to a restaurant and you get a 3-course meal and dessert and a drink, right? And the appetizer wasn't great, but the entree was the balls and the dessert was unbelievable and the drink was great. Oh, the entree was not quite what I expected. Okay, are you going to go the rest of your night talking about how the appetizer sucked? Or are you going to talk about, the duck l'orange or whatever, I don't know, whatever people get at fancy restaurants, dessert. You'd focus on the good, right? So I don't like in situations like this, when there's lots of options, lots of things that can be discussed, we always glom onto the bad thing, right? I didn't watch the NBA All-Star Game. I didn't watch a moment of it because I knew that I wasn't going to get anything out of it. So why would I just went on my night? And I didn't feel the need to announce to the world, this sucks, this blows. I didn't feel the need to begin my show tonight by, the NBA has completely lost the plot. I didn't put together some scripted rant about it because who cares? It wasn't worth watching. So why is it worth talking about, right? Here's what does bother me, and here's what I think is worth talking about with the NBA All-Star Game. And it's very small in scope. If you want to turn this into some, I guess, like, damnation of Adam Silver, go ahead. I think Adam Silver is in a no-win situation here. He's got fans now who are already predisposed to make fun of the All-Star Game and to think of it as stupid. He's got players who obviously don't want to be there. No matter what format he tries, no matter what he does, it's not going to work. If you want to throw this on Adam Silver's lap, fine. I guess he's in charge of the thing, and that on some level is fair. I just look at the players, okay? They don't want to try. They don't care, okay? And I think that is completely independent of the format or the prize, whether it's East-West or Shaq versus Chuck versus Candace, or whether it's an Elam ending with a final target score, or whether it's just a clock and a scoreboard. It doesn't matter. The players don't want to care. They don't want to try. It means nothing to them. Which does not keep me up at night, because if they don't care, I just won't watch. I'll go along with my life, and it doesn't matter. The one part of it that does bother me is when players start cocking off about it. Well, this stupid format. Well, all fans do is complain. Well, I would prefer East-West. Well, what about a one-on-one competition? Well, what if we did this? Hey, no one likes the NBA All-Star Game, no matter the format, because you guys don't take it seriously. Don't turn this around on us. I saw Kevin Durant tweeting today. Well, I don't know why anyone watches. It's obviously people enjoy hating it more than they enjoy watching. Kevin, that's because of you. That's because of the players. That's because you guys don't care. And what drives me bananas is when players go out there and they just power walk up and down the court, take a deep three, take a deep three, take a deep three. If that's what you want to do, fine. I just won't watch. It won't make a single bit of difference to me. But then don't cock off. If the players don't want to take it seriously, fine. But then the players don't get to turn around and be like, I don't get what the big deal. I don't get why are the fans so mad at us? Or players don't get to then complain about the format. The format is irrelevant. You guys don't try. You know what I mean? All this talk about hockey, and I get it, because the Frozen Four Nations finale face-off thing was this weekend, and it was great. It was really entertaining, and they took it seriously. I don't think that's because of the format. I don't think all of a sudden if you take the NBA All-Stars and you break them up by country and you pit them against each other, I don't think anything changes because the players don't care. Hockey players care. It's a different culture, a different sport. Everything's different. They're wired differently. The mentality is different. Their approach is different. Everything is different. The format is irrelevant. I truly believe that. If the players want to try and care, then just about any format would be entertaining. You'd have to work pretty hard to mess it up. And maybe Silver would be capable of it. I don't know. But I think it would be pretty hard to. This to me is an issue of players not caring. It's not an issue with the format. It's not an issue with us, the viewer. It's not an issue with the networks. The players are not doing their job. And if they don't care about the All-Star game, then fine. I don't care. I won't watch. I didn't watch last night. But what really grinds my gourd is when the players turn it back on us, or they turn it on the commissioner, or they turn it on the league. It's like, no, this is a you guys problem. And I'm perfectly fine with it being a you guys problem. It can just be your thing. You can just be the league that has the joke of an all-star game and nobody tries. I don't care. But don't put this on me. Don't piss on my head and tell me that it's raining, because it's not. Don't tell me that I'm just a hater as a fan. Don't tell the media that they're just haters. Don't tell, well, it's the commissioner, he's got to fix the format. No, it's you. It's you. Which is fine as long as you don't turn it around on me, because then I do get pissed. I have no problem completely ignoring the All-Star game, but I have a difficult time ignoring and not getting pissed when the players want to make it other people's fault, because that's the absolute worst. I won't have it. 608-321-1670 if you have any thoughts on that. Any more Badgers thoughts? We are approaching the Monday mailbag. 5:50, I will answer your questions about sports, romance, food, travel, life, religion, whatever you want. GrantBills21@gmail.com. That's coming up in a bit.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Gone sideways after Kamari gets tossed,
totally.
and you guys closed, I think, on a 10-2 run to make it a 1-point game. Just that stretch, how critical was that to give you guys that lift going into the locker room?
It was huge. I mean, Kamari has been our emotional leader the whole year, and obviously with a guy like that out, you're going to need all 5 and all 15 guys for that matter to pick him up from an energy standpoint. And I think we got together as he got ejected and as they were looking at the replay, we got together and said sort of a similar thing. How we can't let this phase us, and we need to stay focused and finish the half strong. And I think that's exactly what we did, and it set us up for a good second half. And then, obviously, it sucks to not have Kamari in the game, but being able to win this without him just shows the maturity of the group as a whole.
That's Jack Janicki. After the game, I have another comment or two. Maybe we'll get to that before the end of the show. The Monday mailbag in about 10 minutes. So submit your questions. Probably more entertaining for the show if they're not sports related. They can be sports related, but probably more entertaining if they're not. Cone Roller texts in, says, "Hey, Grant, a lot of talk about this team not being your father's Wisconsin Badgers. Do you think this will be our sons/daughters Badgers basketball team? Do you see this offensive efficiency and fast-paced nature continue for generations? Or does this feel like a one-off season to you?" I would imagine that this is going to be Guard's plan moving forward. And I talked about this with Andy Herman on Pack-A-Day last night as it relates to some of the things that the Packers do. The way that they've drafted and developed quarterbacks, the way that they've been able to avoid taking wide receivers in the first round. Once you do it the first time, it gets easier to do it again, right? Once you get one elite quarterback, you can be a little bit more strategic about how you get the next, right? Once you have a good wide receiver core in place, you can be a little bit more strategic about how you get the next group of guys. You don't necessarily have to spend a top 10 pick and cross your fingers that guy is going to save the position group or be the be-all, end-all. The same is true of Wisconsin. What they're putting on tape this year, what AJ Storr and now John Tonje have been able to do in successive seasons, and it's not just transfers, it's also guys who have committed from the high school level like Blackwell, like Winter, like Janicki, who is a walk-on, right? Or you could convince a guy like Klesmit from Wofford or other, like, this roster has been assembled using all of the different avenues, which is why I think it's such a fun mix. You have your in-state guys, you have your transfers, you have your developmental projects like Winter or Blackwell. And I say developmental because I guess now developmental is they've been there for 2 years because, gone are the days for the most part of guys being there for 4 or 5 years and growing slowly. Those days are for the most part done. But now that they've established this thing, Cone, to your question, it's easier to continue doing it, right? So I don't know that they're going to score 95 with ease for the rest of my life, but at least in the near future, why would you mess with it? you got a lot of momentum building the way that you're building. So I hope that this maintains, at least for a while. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Eric on I-90.
Good evening, Eric. How are you?
Good evening. I'm good, Grant. How are you?
Good. That you weren't lying about the roads on Friday night. They were gnarly, by the way.
Oh my God, yes, they were. It was a long drive home that night, but we made it. Everything worked out fine.
It's a little bit easier to fight through a drive like that on a Friday night, knowing that you're going to be home and you don't have to immediately turn around and do it again the next morning.
Yes, it is. It is. You just got to get there. You just got to get home. That's all you got to do. This Pro Bowl or All-Star game, Pro Bowl. What is baseball called? What is baseball called?
The All-Star game. Yeah, it's just the All-Star game.
So it's All-Star, All-Pro, and Pro Bowl.
Yes.
Now, there was a lot of people complaining about the Pro Bowl or the Pro Bowl game. And I think that the NFL has done actually something kind of nice with that. Is that it's for kids. It's an entertainment. It's a promoting the league, because you see a lot of these. If you watched any of it, just about everybody there was kids, and for those kids to be able to see these stars is pretty spectacular, I think. You know what I mean? For them kids, they may never be able to afford to go to a professional football game. And if they did, they'd be, up in the nosebleed. To get that up front, real close exposure to your NFL heroes,
yeah,
it's pretty cool. Yeah. And I think we should just kind of, the Pro Bowl days are that we remember are over, and that's fine, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't such a great game anyways. I'll give you just a short story about that.
Sure.
That my son, the first professional football game he ever seen wasn't even a game. It was a family night at Lambeau Field.
Same.
And when I walked him down and he was a huge football fan, when I walked him down to the very bottom row right there on the rail, and he could stand there, see those players 10, 15, 20 feet away from him, he was just mesmerized by it. And I'll never forget that. And it was kind of a test for him, too, because on the way back, he said, "Dad, I still like the Vikings the best." So,
I see. Yeah.
I exposed him. I exposed him to that right away, because I knew there'd be a lot of pressure. And so I knew he was going to be okay then,
Yeah.
So, yeah, but that's what it's for. And maybe the NBA should do something more like that. Just cancel the game. Nobody wants. Listen, NBA players, they don't even care about regular season games.
Yeah.
They're going to care
Right.
about this.
That's the problem.
So,
yeah.
right? And one other thing I wanted to bring up to you, because you're such a defender of, Survivor, and they're being allowed to have 150 seasons. Okay.
Just stupid.
Saturday Night Live had their 50th anniversary last night, and Saturday Night Live is not unlike Survivor, where they kind of have two separate seasons in here. They kind of do a lull around Christmas, but they come back on for live shows. Now, how many seasons does Saturday Night Live have? Is that like 8,000 seasons?
They'd have 100, right, if you're just doubling it? Because Survivor, what?
No.
40, is it 48
Yeah,
that's about to start in the spring?
They'd have 100 seasons if Probst was involved there.
If Probst.
But they don't sit and fake it out like that.
I love how this is both a hanging point for you, and also you assign it personally to Jeff Probst. Like this is not a marketing or CBS thing. This is a personal vendetta against Jeff Probst himself that you have, which I find funny.
Well, I do funny things, Grant. I do funny things.
I am aware
So,
at this stage. Yes.
Right.
Well, I appreciate it, Eric. I think the family night point is a good one. Drive safe, Eric. I hope the roads are better. That was my first experience at Lambeau Field too, was family night. The where that comparison could maybe be a little bit hollow is family night tickets used to be pretty darn cheap. I don't know what they are anymore, but they used to be like uber cheap. And I can't imagine All-Star tickets are. Major League Baseball's All-Star game also was from a time where there was no interleague play, and certain baseball fans in certain cities, they'd never have an opportunity to watch, let alone see these guys in person. So we have such a widespread exposure now because of social media and because every game's televised. We have such a widespread level of exposure to all of these stars. An all-star game no longer really is providing something we can't get anywhere else, which is tough. It's a cool way to showcase your league and showcase your sport. I don't know. I don't really have qualms with the NBA or with Adam Silver today because to me, it's on the players. If they don't want to care, then I don't think the format matters, and I don't think the commissioner matters. I don't think any of it matters, right? Which is fine with me. I don't care. If you guys don't care, fine. I won't watch. It's a Sunday night. I'll play Xbox. I'll do a million other things. But then when the players start turning it around and they start getting defensive, it's like, well, wait. If you guys want to be shamelessly just indifferent on this thing and you don't want to care, that's a personal choice. I respect it. But what you can't do is not take it seriously and then get mad as to why people aren't taking your product and your game seriously, and they might be complaining about it a little bit. I don't know. That's my 2 cents, at least, on the All-Star game, which that's probably 2 more cents than it needs, because who cares? Again, if the players aren't going to care, we don't have to care. We don't need to lose any sleep over it. We don't need to waste any breath on it. And I host 2-hour talks every night. I waste breath on a lot of things. Q says All-Star games are for the fans in attendance and the kids. It's not for adult television audiences. My 2-year-old daughter was on her feet screaming defense at the TV last night. It's about the next generation. Interesting. I don't know. It's different to everyone. It means something different to everyone. If I'm sitting down trying to get content for the show on a Sunday night, I'm not going to get much from the NBA All-Star game. Maybe would have got a little bit from Daytona. I don't know. By Sunday night, I'm out. I'm out. I'll watch Sunday Night Football, but that's Sunday Night Football. By the time Sunday at 8:30 or 9 hits, I don't know. I can't be bothered. I'm starting my week. Send your questions. The Monday mailbag, grantbills21@gmail.com. I will address them. I will answer them. The weirder and the wackier, the better. We'll wrap up the show with that next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Because the mail never stops.
Charles, we'll be writing to you. She's got mail. That's the name of the movie.
That's it, honey. There's never a let-up. It's relentless. Every day it piles up more and more and more, and you got to get it up. And the more you get up, the more it keeps coming in.
The Monday mailbag. Always a fun, zany, wacky way to wrap up a Monday show. Ease back into the week. The idea of the segment is we talk about some funny, wacky, off the beaten path things. Inspired, led, encouraged, if you will, by your questions, which you can email to me. You must email them. The idea is then they're all in the same spot. Okay. And you can ask sports-related questions. It's just a little bit more fun if they're off the beaten path, if you will. I will go in order. Started this morning, Tyler in Massachusetts. Frequent question asker says, Happy President's Day from Massachusetts, where everyone seems to have the day off from work, and it's the start of winter break for the kids in school. Sorry to be political on the show, but who is your favorite president and why? No days off for me as I work for a British-Swedish company. Go USA beats Sweden tonight in the Four Nations face-off at the TD Garden. Oh, it's in Mass. My favorite president? You know what? Calvin Coolidge used to, I believe it was Calvin Coolidge, vacation in northern Wisconsin near the Brule River. And that is enough for me. I also like Ronald Reagan because he liked the parks. Or not Ronald Reagan, Teddy Roosevelt, because he liked the parks. And also I loved FDR because he was a huge socialist, and I'm a closet commie. I'm kidding. Tony says, in honor of the SNL, this is Tony in Texas. In honor of SNL's 50th anniversary, give me your 5 not ready for primetime players. I don't know what that means. Is that something to do with SNL? I'm not sure, Tony. We can circle back. Thomas in La Crosse. Grant Bilsey, son of a gun. 1. The Badgers looked really good this Saturday at Purdue. I think they could surprise some teams in the tourney. Also, AP voters are kind of out of their mind for the Badgers being 16th going into the Purdue game. Which Brewers players do you think will have a breakout season in 2025? Contreras? Well, it would be hard for Contreras to have a breakout season. He's probably the closest thing they have to an MVP candidate. Breakout season? Off the dome. Reese Hoskins, because he sucked last year and it won't take a lot. And also, I don't know, Badgers, I've heard so many comments today. The Badgers, they could surprise some people in the tournament. Or Badgers, they're kind of sneaky good. They're 9th in the Ken Pom. They're not sneaky anything. They're just really good. And what they were lacking was a win over a team like Purdue, which they got on Saturday, which the AP voters recognized, boosting them from 16th, I believe, to 11th. Let's see. Jacob, what was your first Pokemon game and which starter pack did you pick? Never had a Game Boy. Just not my bag. I had some cards once upon a time. Never had a Game Boy. Didn't really play video games as a youth. I remember when my parents sat me and my siblings down and said that it would be acceptable if we pooled our money and bought a Wii. So we played all the Wii games, I remember. Very fun. But sorry, no Pokemon. Josh says that interview with Jason was incredible on last Friday's show. Felt similar to some of the amazing interviews from Super Bowl week. How did you meet and establish the connection with Jason? Do you envision your show moving in that direction? Bringing a more national focus interview once or twice a week. I really enjoyed getting those sprinkled throughout. It's fun to zoom out every once in a while. No, this is Wisconsin Sports Show, but every once in a while you can take a more national guest. You can make him talk about your thing and then ask some more big picture. I didn't meet Jason at the volume party. He wasn't there. He was skiing. But I saw him actually on another Wisconsin show. And I'm like, well, if that show can get him, then we definitely can. Respectfully. That's how I got him on, is I saw him on another show. It's like, well, he's doing that show. Come on. This is from who even is this email address doesn't make any sense. It just says camp. It says, Grant, if you could only have, what would it be? Horrifying thought, I know. Make it 2 favorite meals. Oh, this is Clemhead Mike. Favorite meals? I tell you what, I really like salmon. I could eat salmon. Shoot. I don't know. Give me a rain check. I like all food. I just don't like olives, but I like dirty martinis for some reason. I'm a big salmon guy. So I guess I'll say salmon. That's an answer that someone's going to make fun of me for. Clint says 25 below zero tonight, 45 below with wind chill. What are we even doing here? At least we could get one of our teams to win us a championship so the memories could keep us warm on these Arctic nights. It's from Clint. So I would agree. I mean, the Bucks did. It feels like we could have another championship or two, but we could also be worse. Like here's the thing. I lived in La Crosse because that's where I went to college. I don't know if I've ever brought that up. I lived there from 2017 to 2023, like 6 or 7 years. And I lived there throughout college and then, after college for a while with some of my college friends. And I just wanted one of our teams because the Packers played in NFC championship games twice. The Brewers went to the NLCS. The Bucks went to the conference finals once. They were top seeds. And I just wanted one championship. Living in La Crosse, so I could go celebrate on 3rd Street, be with my friends. That's a memory that I wanted to have. I got it from the Bucks in 2021. Probably better that it happened in 21 and not 20. So, I agree with your sentiment. We could also be doing worse, Clint. Second cousin Mike says, have you ever caught a chicken at Pioneer Days? No, but I saw Pioneer Days was this weekend up in Ridgeland. I would have loved to be there. I was there 7 years ago. Facebook memory showed up. I did not catch a chicken. I just drank. But congrats to those who caught chickens up in Ridgeland this last weekend. This is from Schmidt. Says, what would your walk-up song be? This is important. This is something that I feel like I've thought about a lot. But for whatever reason, the number is not on the top of my head. Well, shoot, what songs do I play on the show? You know what I mean? I feel like it's got to be one of those. If I put it into the show, it means I got to like it a lot. I always thought like some Grateful Dead song would be kind of cool. There was a Twin player that did something like that. Oh God, you caught me with my pants down. Maybe a Jimmy Buffett song. What would be a good Jimmy Buffett? What would be like a nasty walk-up song? I'm looking at my Jimmy Buffett playlist right now. Fins would be kind of cool. That'd be pretty badass. Maybe I'll say like a Buffett song or Grateful Dead song. Coyote Mike, this is our last one, says, can you please explain the Wisco logo license? 2018. Yeah, the show logo is a license plate since 2018. And he says, is 2018 significant? Coyote Mike. Oh, that's when the show started. So that's when the logo first got made. And I just haven't changed it. Or the person who made it actually hasn't. He made it in 2018. I like it. I think it's sharp. And I don't really care about the year. Honestly, the year might farm me some engagement because people go, you got to update that sticker. Someone comments on a YouTube video, you got to update that registration sticker. And now all of a sudden I get a little plus in the engagement category. Man, what would be my walk-up song in Major League? That's going to stick with me. I feel like I have a better answer than some Jimmy Buffett song. But maybe not. I don't know. Be something cool. Maybe a Krungbin song. I don't know. It's a really good question. I like a couple Little Feat songs. Spanish Moon would be kind of cool. Something like that. I've been really listening to the song I Wish by Stevie Wonder. That's got a great groove as well. I listen to a lot of Stevie Wonder in New Orleans. I don't know if that's insensitive or fitting. I'm not sure. I wish I could give you a better answer. Excellent questions in the mailbag today. Appreciate you all. I think I got to them all. Oh, Joey. I missed this one. So do the Packers need a real OC? I know Matt LaFleur is the offensive mind, heart and pulse of this team, etc. But do the Packers need someone akin to Kellen Moore, Ben Johnson, etc.? Would love to hear your thoughts. Joey, a.k.a. Bass Pro Joe. Well, look, I'd love for Ben Johnson. Those guys are head coaches now. So that's the problem, is you're not going to get a high-level offensive coordinator when the head coach is calling plays, right? You attract the best possible offensive coordinator. You attract the OC that's one step away from being a head coach when they have yet to call plays. Kyle Shanahan under Dan Quinn, right? Ben Johnson under Dan Campbell. Matt LaFleur under Mike Vrabel, right? Like that. So the Packers are always going to be limited in the OCs that they're able to bring in. I think their best bet is to keep developing guys, promoting guys, and hoping they can promote and develop good ideas from within. And look, I've said if I'm an NFL owner, I would force my coaching staff to make an outside hire every year. You need to bring in someone with outside ideas. It can't be all of the same people. But I think internal development's the Packers' best bet. Tomorrow we'll be live at the Kohl Center. Can't wait. Enjoy your evening.